Welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The time is 7 p.m. on Monday, February 7th, 2022. And as I mentioned, I'd like to call the Heritage Advisory Committee meeting to order. Agenda item 1.1 for this evening, appointment of committee chair and vice chair. With the committee's consent, we will deal with each of the two appointments separately. May I please have a motion to nominate a chair for the year 2022 of the Heritage Advisory Committee?
John Green, motion.
John Green, motion, and I see Matt Kinsella. I'll take you as a second.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. So the item is item number 1, that a committee member be elected as chair for the year 2022 of the Heritage Advisory Committee term. And we have moved that and carried that. And now we will go to a discussion. So do we want to have any nominations put forward?
Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate yourself.
Thank you, Bob.
If there's a seconder for such,
second
if you're
that.
willing.
I'm willing to stay on to see the term.
Yeah, I'm willing to second that, John Green. I think you've done a splendid job, Jeff.
Absolutely.
And to
Thank you.
continue would be super.
All right, thanks. I did see that, Matt, so thank you as well for your 1.5 nomination there. Okay, if there are any comments or questions, I'd be happy to see out the term. I know it's been a bit of a challenge with the pandemic and doing this virtually, but like I said, I have no concerns, and I'd be willing to do that. So if there are no other comments or questions, I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Thank you. And moving to the vice chair, may I please have a motion to nominate a vice chair for the year 2022 of the Heritage Advisory Committee?
A motion to nominate Bob.
Thank you, Matt. I would be willing to second that, Bob, but
I can second it.
oh, okay, go ahead, Robert. There you go. Bob, any questions, comments, concerns with being nominated as the vice chair for the remainder of the Heritage Advisory Committee term?
I'm willing to take that on unless someone else would. If there's competition, I would bow to the competition. No, that would be fine.
Bob, you managed to silence the crowd with that one, so I don't know if it's the vice chair.
Thanks again, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Very
So
good.
the item that a committee member be elected as vice chair for the year 2022 of the Heritage Advisory Committee, 2018-2022 term, it's Bob McRoberts. Can I get someone to move that?
So move, John Green.
John, and if I can have someone second that?
I'll second
Matt
it.
Kinsella. Thank you, Matt. Okay, so I will call a vote. All in favor?
Aye, John Green.
Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay, as the chair for the term, I will move on to our items for this evening. Agenda item number 2, approval of the agenda. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services?
So move.
Moved by Bob, second. Second by Matt. Thank you, Matt. Any questions or comments on the agenda this evening? Not seeing any questions or comments. I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries. Agenda item number 3 for this evening, declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening? Not seeing any hands or hearing any voices, so I'll take that as a no. Moving to agenda item number 4, receipt of the minutes. May I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of January 12th, 2022. Moved by Matt. Could I get a seconder?
John.
John Green. Thank you, John. Any questions or comments on the minutes from January 12th, 2022? Good evening, Councillor Humphreys.
Hi. So I'm late, guys.
No problem at all. So I'm not seeing any questions or comments on the meeting minutes from our last meeting, so I'll call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any hands. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, delegations. We have no delegations this evening. Agenda item number 6, matters for consideration. Item number 6.1, memorandum from planner, heritage planning, re-heritage permit application, file HPA-2021-1682 Center Street. The owner applicant is in attendance with us today to respond to any questions. Sheeta, I'm assuming we need to let that individual in the meeting.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So they're just connecting momentarily. So we can, so they're present today to answer and respond to any questions. They don't have a formal presentation. So they're just joining in right now. So Casey is with us today.
Great. Welcome, Casey. For this item, may I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? I see Robert moving the item. Second by Matt Kinsella. Thank you, Matt. So item number 6.1, that the memorandum regarding heritage permit application file HPA 2020-16 be received, and that the Heritage Advisory Committee comments regarding HPA file 2021-16 be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Would staff like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item relates to heritage permit application HPA 2021-16 to allow the construction of a 36.78 square meter one-story rear addition to the existing dwelling at 82 Center Street. The subject property is designated as Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, as it is located in the Northeast Old Aurora Heritage Conservation District. Staff have reviewed the application based on the guidelines of the district plan and are generally satisfied that the overall design and location of the rear addition, as it does not adversely impact the heritage value of the property. The proposed addition is designed with a flat roof, 2 single pane windows and horizontal siding that will be in a dark gray vinyl to match the existing trim of the second story. The addition is located in an inconspicuous location of the property and is not visible from the street, and therefore it will not adversely impact the streetscape. So staff would like to obtain comments from HAC before bringing a final recommendation forward to council.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions or comments for the applicant or staff this evening? Go ahead, Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the delegates this evening for adhering to the standards in heritage listed home to have the addition, as staff have reported, inconspicuous. I really appreciate it. I appreciate that you're using the trim work that's already on the home. And again, it means a lot to us. So thank you for coming here and sharing your plans with us. I feel very comfortable with what you're doing and appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries.
Thank you. I'd echo those comments as well. With no adverse impacts in a very important area of our town, fully support this proposal and would like to thank the applicant for bringing this forward to us and adhering to the design guidelines in this district. Do we have any other further comments on this matter? If not, I will call a vote. Okay, I will call a vote. All in favor of this motion? Any opposed?
Aye.
None opposed, that carries. Thank you, everyone. Moving ahead to agenda item 6.2, memorandum from planner, heritage planning, report to designate 3438 Berksy Street under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act and to delist 26 and 32 Berksy Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion?
So moved, John.
Moved by John, seconded by Bob. Thank you, Bob. The item this evening, that the memorandum regarding the designation of 34-38 Berksy Street under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act as a property of cultural heritage value or interest, and the removal of 26 and 32 Berksy Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest be received, and that the Heritage Advisory Committee comments regarding designation of 34 and 38 Berksy Street under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. And number 3, that the Heritage Advisory Committee comments regarding the removal of 26 and 32 Berksy Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Would staff like to speak to this item this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you've mentioned, this item relates to the designation of 34 to 38 Berksy Street under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, as well as a removal of 26 and 32 Berksy Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. 26, 32, and 34 to 38 Berksy Street are all non-designated properties listed on the town's Heritage Register. In regards to 26 and 32 Berksy Street, the Heritage Impact Assessment prepared by ERA Architects, which has also been peer reviewed by a third-party consultant, concludes that the heritage integrity of the two buildings at 26 and 32 Berksy Street have been compromised and therefore don't have sufficient merits to warrant a designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. As it relates to 34 to 38 Berksy Street, the Heritage Advisory Committee's working group, as well as the Heritage Advisory Committee, is of the opinion that 34 to 38 Berksy Street is of significant heritage value and is worthy of designation. On June 7th, 2021, the Heritage Advisory Committee considered a request to remove 26, 32, and 34 to 38 Berksy Street from the town's Heritage Register, following the submission of an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application demolish the existing buildings to accommodate the new development. The application was under review by the town and has been subsequently appealed to the Ontario Land Tribunal. During the meeting, committee members expressed their disappointment that the buildings on 34 to 38 Berksy Street had not been designated yet, as it was deemed worthy of designation through working group evaluations. It was also acknowledged that even though the architectural integrity may have been compromised over the years, HAC was of the opinion that 34 to 38 Berksy Street are of significant historical and contextual value due to direct association with the Sisman Shoe Company, as well as its contributions to Aurora's history. So we would like to obtain comments from HAC regarding two matters. So the delisting of 26 and 32 Berksy Street, as well as the designation of 34 to 38 Berksy Street before bringing a final recommendation to council.
Thank you. Does the committee have any questions or comments this evening? Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have, I found it interesting in the report on page 18, page 16 of 84. This isn't really a big deal. It says, no, I'll leave that off. I would like to make a few comments since the committee's not able to do motions, but we are able to make comments. I support the motion that's on the floor. I would like to clarify a few things. I did send information to councillors, I believe back in June, but I'd like to get a few comments on the record just in case there is debate on this recommendation down the road. If I may, if you would please bear with me. First, to clarify just to point out a couple of things from the ERA report, some inaccuracies, or just to clarify a little bit. I'm looking at our agenda, 84-page agenda on pages 43, 45, and 62. It speaks that Factory 2, meaning 34 Berksy, was used mainly for storage. It sounds like the ERA folks are really wanting to drive that home as being insignificant. But I would like to point out that it's 34 Berksy where this whole Sisman shoe factory began, with Thomas Sisman and Underhill, and I'll say more about that in a few moments. The building perhaps became storage when the bigger building that was demolished, I believe in 1982, further to the south, in 1910. On page 45 of 84, it says that number 38 was built in 1951. On page 27 of 84, it says number 38 was built in 1954. According to local historian Jackie Stewart's records, it is indeed 1951. So there's a contradiction in the ERA report. In terms of added information, I just need to pull up the report. Says that Rosanna Spence, her family never resided in the area, and Rosanna Spence lived in Aurora, and the 1901 census places the Spence family on or near Berksy and Wellington, as well as owning several rental properties. So I think there's a near, the word near versus the word on, but the ERA report says that the builder is unknown, page 62 of 84, but George Thomas Browning, a local architect and builder, secured the contract to build the factory, according to the Aurora Banner of May 10th, 1901. And Mr. Browning was a prominent builder in the town, building many of the large structures in Aurora and vicinity, including Collis Leather, demolished in 2015, and the Office Specialty Company in Newmarket. He also built houses 16 Catherine and 48 Spruce, among others. So the builder is indeed known and well known. I would like to add some missing history from the ERA consultant's report. For example, Thomas Sisman and Fred Underhill moved their shoe factory from Markham to Aurora in 1901. Aurora offered the company a bonus of $10,000 for land and buildings, free water rates for 10 years, and free municipal taxes, except for school taxes, for 10 years, on the condition that this shoe factory hire at least 70 employees that would be living in Aurora. Markham took Aurora to court and they lost. The agreement was held to be legal. Markham did not give up. They appealed to the Court of Appeal and won. However, Aurora really wanted the company for the town. They sought leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada. Leave was refused. Aurora had lost. Aurora then went to the province of Ontario and had a special bill presented to the legislature approving the agreement. The act was passed in 1903, 2 years after Sisman and Underhill had moved to Aurora. Personally, I think that adds something to the significance of the history. The lawyer for Aurora at the time was Thomas Herbert Lennox. Lennox resigned from Aurora Town Council in 1901 to represent Aurora in that case. He served also 6 years on the school board as a trustee, went on to be an MPP and an MP. Number 34 was built in 1901. I believe somewhere in the report it speaks to it as 1910. Anyhow, it was built in 1934, was built in 1901. It was not just storage, and it wasn't storage at that time, as I was saying earlier, but it was the first of the Sisman factories. Underhill split from Sisman in 1910 and moved to Barrie. That's when Sisman's expanded into the larger building on the southwest corner of Moseley and Berksy. It's no longer there. Number 34 has made it onto at least 3 different postcards. The bigger building, demolished in 1982, appears on at least 7 different postcards. Number 34 is directly across the railroad from which facilitated shipping Sisman shoes and boots across Canada and beyond. The Canadian Army of the day, or days, years, wore Sisman boots. Roscoe, otherwise known as Ross Linton, grandson of Thomas Sisman, was employed as the longest serving general manager, 40 years, and then became president. He also served as mayor of Aurora from 1944 to 47. There's a bunch more history. Once upon a time, I taught 2 of the great granddaughters of Thomas Sisman. I'm not sure if the family is still in Aurora. They were on Kennedy Street not too many years ago. So I think there is more significance to the history than appears in the ERA report, and history that I think is worth recognizing and designating. Thank you for putting up with that background. Bye for now.
Thank you, Bob. Councillor Humphreys, you have your hand.
Yes,
raised.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Bob. I thoroughly enjoyed every minute and every detail of that history. And now, Bob, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but we lost a very special counselor last week, David Griffith. And I was speaking to his lovely wife this past summer, and she mentioned to me that the first line foreman or manager of Sisman Shoes was David's father. And he was the one who rolled off the first set of army boots that came out of Sisman Shoes. And he worked there for over 50 years. It's a very interesting life. I won't get into that, but there is significant history here, and I don't want it to go unnoticed. And I was wondering, through Mr. Chair, if staff, Prashanthi, can we include, Bob sent us that email in the summer. Can we include some of that detail in our own staff report when it comes, forward to council, some of the comments, because it has to be made significant from my perspective. So I don't know if that's possible. Is that something we could add ourselves?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Staff can definitely incorporate all the facts and the history that Bob has provided us today. The exact date slips my mind, but this item following tonight, it is moving forward to a general committee meeting and a council meeting. So I just wanted to note that even if even if all the history that was relayed to us by Bob isn't included in the staff report, if council does decide to support the designation through part 4, then the designation bylaw will include all this information.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's really important. And I know I'm going to bring this forward through, Mr. Chair. I hope you're okay with this one. I just want to get this cleared up because we had designated the building a couple of years ago. Well, thought we did. And we're kind of going through that now. Is there any way we can make that, and maybe I missed it in the report, clear that that was something that the Heritage Advisory Committee thought was done? It looks like a housekeeping item that did not follow through for some reason. Is it possible that we can highlight that as well? I just don't want any confusion by the developer to think we're doing this now when it was something done much earlier. Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Prasanthi.
How embarrassing.
That's okay. I do it all the time. It's all right.
For you, I believe in the staff memo, it does briefly highlight that during the June 7th HAC meeting, that HAC did express their disappointment that since the evaluation, nothing had been done. So I could ensure that that is emphasized when it does proceed to General Committee and Council.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Prasanthi, because through Mr. Chair, what that will do is will allow the developer and the builder to understand we're not just doing this now as a tactic or, something to say, oh, we can do this quickly. It was done a long time ago. It just didn't, follow through and become formally designated at that time. So I appreciate that. That's very good. And having that information is important for sure. Thank you so much. That's my comments.
Thank you, Councillor.
I could say something through Mr. Chair, non-heritage related, but I don't think I can because the mayor's here and he'll say, you need to focus on HAC. I'm only kidding. Like the height. We don't want the height, sorry.
Councillor Humphreys, let's not make this a comment about you being out of order here on my return.
That's to right. I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm kidding, of course. Anybody else or staff have any more comments or questions related to this item this evening?
It's like the mayor has his hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to make sure we all have an understanding of the process, just because I know that things have changed through the development of the Mega Tribunal, the OLT. And so I just wanted to make sure that we do have a full understanding. It's always been my understanding, and Prasanthi, maybe you can just kind of fill us all in to make sure I'm correct on this, that previously, if a Heritage Advisory Committee and Council ultimately have decided to designate any property under Part 4, that if the property owner did appeal it, would go to the Conservation Review Board, which ultimately would decide, but their decision was not one that was one that council necessarily had to follow. The council could override that decision. Basically, the authority fell to council. But now under the new OLT, and considering it's been brought under the umbrella, has that changed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can provide some insight on the general process for designated property under Part 4. So the first step is, where a municipality has established a municipal advisory committee in Aurora's context, PAC. Before a notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4 is served on the owner, HAC is consulted. Following comments provided by HAC, it is Aurora's process then to go to GC and council, and then council, if they agree with the discussions and everything, then they would direct staff to issue the notice of intent on the owner. Once the town issues the notice of intention to designate, the owner may object a proposed amendment within 30 days of its publication. So within those 30 days, the owners or applicants can choose to file a notice of objection to the town. Once that's and the notice of objection, I'll just expand on that a little bit more. Essentially provides reasons why they object and any facts that new facts may be, whatever it may be, to really to solidify their notice of objection. Following that, it then goes back to council, where council has two options. They can either decide to withdraw the notice of intent, or they can move forward with the designation. If it is the latter, if they do move forward with the designation, that's when the appeal process kicks in, which I believe is 60 or 90 days. But is not to say that, following hack, if it goes to GC and council, then if we move to designate, then the appeal period starts right after that. There is an additional step where we all have one more chance to discuss everything before either withdrawing the notice or proceeding with the designation.
Thank you, Prashant, and through you, Mr. Chair, and the part that I was more concerned about, and maybe we can have a discussion offline, and maybe we can bring everyone up to speed later, is that because of the changes to the tribunal, the decisions of the Conservation Review Board, when they looked at it through an appeals process, their decision was not binding on a council, and so therefore, previously, in the provincial government's ultimate wisdom, they left heritage matters to the municipalities, the local municipalities themselves, which was a great thing because we had the authority to decide what was historic in our town. Unfortunately, under the new tribunal, and as it's been created as a mega thing, is that their decision now has become binding. Which is problematic in my view, and I'm pretty sure all of us feel probably the same way. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. While this might be something that we want to designate, we could have our hands full ultimately down the road, which is unfortunate. And I don't want to get into the whole tribunal thing and what I'm trying to do, but that this is part of it as well, is to make sure that we continuously have a say in historic matters in our town, as well as how we appropriately grow. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
So I'm just, thanks for clarifying everything, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ask a question then. So if we decide that they can't move forward with this, you're saying that the other body can overrule that and effectively it wouldn't be designated. Is that my understanding? Because if that's the case and they do overrule and it's no longer designated, then the builder's free to more or less build what he wants without really us as HAC having any impact on the actual site at all. So would it not be more beneficial to try and, should we not try and work with them a little bit and collaborate with the developer? Because the developer is not just going to walk away if we designate these buildings. He's going to appeal it all the way until he gets what he wants. I'm just concerned that if what the mayor is saying is that can be we can be overruled, then we may be left with nothing at all that we can do. If I understand how this process works. If I don't, then.
Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Matt, I see what you're saying, but I mean, ultimately, just to give you a little bit more background as well, the development in overall they've already appealed it to the tribunal, so they're already not willing to work with us. So we're already past that stage as far as Matt. And I didn't want to bring that in because that really has nothing to do with what we're actually talking about. But just so you have an understanding of where the actual development is, they're not. I don't see a willingness of them wanting to work with us. Because I think ultimately, from my perspective, is I think that we need to do what's in the best interest of our town. And if that means that these properties should be designated, then and they're worthy of designation and they have historic value to this town, then that's ultimately what we should be doing as a town. And and then we just need to do what we need to do as far as fighting it and making sure that we can continue to uphold whatever decisions that we make as a Heritage Advisory Committee and as a council.
Mr. Chair,
so John, I'm just going to go in order that we have hands raised here. I have Bob. I saw Bob's next, so just if it's okay, go ahead, Bob.
Mr. Chair, I'm okay. I've spoken, so I don't mind if John wants to speak first, and I'll come in after.
Yeah, I can be very brief. It would appear that if the tribunal now has the ultimate say, it would seem only right that if where is the tribunal getting all its information from historically, so it can make an informed decision about this whole thing. If they just go with a cursory few lines, I can see them possibly siding with the developer rather than looking at it from Aurora's council or HAC's perspective. And it would not be a fair recommendation on their part.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I'm going to apologize for adding in this whole extra bit now that you guys are discussing. But John, I mean, ultimately, they would look at the information that is even as provided to you through the in-depth analysis that everyone has done. That would be presented. Now, this is not to say, and this is why I apologize for bringing this all up. But I just did want to just let you guys have an understanding of what the process is and what could happen. But ultimately, if there is a strong case for designation, chances are they would side with us. So that's a good thing. I mean, because heritage is slightly different than just a simple planning matter. So as long as you actually can demonstrate that there is historic value, but there's always that off chance now that their decision is binding, that you could lose, right? And so I just wanted to put that out there, just to have everyone have an understanding of what could happen, even though we have all the great intentions of moving forward, and this does meet and it's worthy of designation, that by off chance, it could get turned around on us. But ultimately, I think that there's a strong case for this, and I would think that the review board would uphold any decision that council or this body makes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Humphreys and then Bob.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to appreciate Mr. Mayor's comments this evening. It's important for us to know, how strong our words are here. We're, and again, that's why I appreciated Bob's historical information. And this is why I wanted things clear on the report, the staff report, that we did this and designated this a few years back, not just, when we heard about the development moving forward. It's very important so that when the discussions occur and the developer obviously doesn't want to work with us, at least they get the full story. It's really important for us to have that information, and we got to keep trying. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Bob, if you're still willing to speak.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would echo Sandra's sentiments of stressing that this was not a last-minute decision on the part of the Heritage Committee, but an assumption back on March the 5th of 2020, so very close to 2 years ago, that we're not usually asked to evaluate. The history of this committee is that we're not asked to evaluate a property unless, if it's designated worthy, if it scores worthy of designation, that's always been what's happened. So there was an assumption that that was happening or had happened about 2 years ago. Just to mention that one might argue, depending on who one is and where one is, oh, the buildings have been altered, they're covered in stucco. I would just point out that the Baldwin's building and 15242 Yonge Street are also stuccoed buildings that are designated, already designated. And on page 43 of 84 of our agenda is a picture of a house. And just in case there's any confusion, number 38 is a building that was put up in the 1950s, specifically 1951, where the Sisman House used to stand. So between 34 Berksy and the bigger factory that was on the south side of Moseley and Berksy stood a big house. So number 38 has replaced that house. If there was need down the road for any compromising, I would say that number 34 contains much more history than 38. I still support the motion on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions or comments on this matter this evening?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just have one thing. I do appreciate all the comments that were provided on 34 to 38 Berksy Street, but we also have the other part, the delisting of 26 and 32. So we would appreciate receiving some comments on where HAC stands with the delisting of those two properties as well.
Okay, thank you. Any of the advisory committee members have any comments on those two properties this evening? Councillor Humphreys, go ahead.
To you, Mr. Chair, I'm not in favor. The entire complex reflects heritage, and I do not support the delisting of those two at this time. It tells a complete story, and you know, maybe I should be careful how I say this, but maybe with the loss of Councillor David Griffith and the story, the true life story of what those complexes meant, you know, turns it into the reality of Aurora's heritage, a piece of it, a significant piece of it that is going to be gone. And it's just something we need to try to uphold. One quick one, my family Humphreys, so great grandfather and grandfather were the night watchmen for Sisman Shoes. There's a lot of heritage in this town, and you know, it's something we just have to value, and I just feel that this is something that I just can't support tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Any other comments or questions related to 26 and 32? Go ahead, Bob. Bob, you're on mute.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm just juggling too many screens. Well, I've only got one screen, and that's part of my problem. Page, I'm not sure how significant this is. Page 16 of 84 says 26, 32, 38 scored between 45 and 69, which suggests they may be worthy of heritage designation. And on the next page, 19, under analysis in bold, it says the Heritage Advisory Committee's working group performed an evaluation of 26 and 32 Berksy and concludes that the properties are not worthy of heritage designation. Okay, I was looking for the scores. I see them on page 19. 26 scored 58.6 and 32 scored 42.6. I'm of mixed emotion. I don't remember from 2 years ago what the working group concluded, but I just point out that the scores received put them, I think, in group 2 as maybe worthy of heritage designation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any other comments or questions related to this matter? Okay.
Hi,
Santhi, go ahead.
One more thing. Through you, Mr. Chair, would it be, I guess we're just looking for a consensus to understand if the committee would be in favor of having 26 and 32 Berksy Street remain on the register as listed properties, or if they would also like to see it proceed as for us to proceed with the designation under Part 4.
Thank you. So I guess, Bob, my question to you as part of the working group, they were scored as potential?
Yeah. So I don't have the score sheet in front of me, but I believe
course, yeah.
that range that is mentioned on page 18 says worthy of being designated. It's interesting what Berkshire has just asked. We used to make motion or recommendations to council, but we're only supposed to make comments in this term. So I'm kind of leaning to, okay, council, go ahead and draw a conclusion. As being a member on the Heritage Committee, my thinking at the moment is what Sandra has said. Let's keep the heritage. I'd also mention that the Griffith family that she spoke of, the kids of the family, I believe, are currently 5th generation Aurorans. So the tremendous amount of history, especially along this street. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Go ahead, Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you. Sorry. Oh, I'm off mute. Thank you. Yeah, I see some of the score sheets. I think they're right at the end of the report, and they weren't absolutely not listed. As Bob mentioned, they were worthy, so it wasn't like they scored super low. The other two were obviously more significant in the working group's mind through their assessment. So if they were completely unworthy, I would say, yeah, but it does say it's worthy of a consideration, and it's the bigger picture. It's the full picture. So I think we can vote on it though through Mr. Chair, Prashant. I think we can vote on it, and you could get a sense if we all agree on that or not. So everyone is free to say no or yes through a vote on that second matter. Is that okay? Can we vote on it separately? Is that fair? Through you, Mr. Chair, to Prashant, maybe.
And maybe through Ashita from a procedural.
Yes, my apologies.
Right, so through you, Mr. Chair. So what we're voting on is the committee's feedback to be referred back to staff. So we're not voting on if we're
okay.
If the committee would like to but what we can do is that if the committee feels that this is something that like this property is worthy of designation, if that's the consensus, and that can be, of course, like as mentioned before, be part of the discussion of the minutes, saying that the committee does suggest that this be considered for designation based on the scores or something along those lines. So that is something that we can include in the minutes.
Okay.
Good. Okay. So Councillor Humphreys and Bob, it sounds like you're both in favor of designation of these subject properties. John, Robert, Matt, any thoughts from any of you?
From John.
John.
In listening to Bob and Sandra, they do put forward a very convincing scene and a good argument for including the two sets of properties both as heritage designation or consideration, rather than just discard one. It does have a lot of history to it, and it does fit with the other one as well. So I support that approach.
Okay, thank you. Matt, go ahead.
I agree with that assessment as well. I think it's important that we keep them all together. I think there's some strength in numbers with that. If we can get those at least down the designation route as well, I think that's important.
Okay. Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I'm going to basically say the same thing Matt just raised. Strength in numbers seems to be key here. We're giving away a few it's just going to weaken our position for holding on to 34, et cetera. So I'm going to side with the group on this one.
Thank you. So Prashanthi, it sounds like from the comments from the group, 26 and 32 Berksy Street, that, you know, there's overwhelming support to have those included. And obviously, you know, this group, the Heritage Advisory Committee, is not able to make that recommendation to council, but I am hopeful that we have that reflected in the comments this evening, that we were very much in favor of designating those two properties along with the with 34, 38. Do we have any more questions, comments on this matter this evening? Okay. Not seeing any hands or hearing any voices. So if that's the case, if there are no further comments, I'll call a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Moving to agenda item number 7, informational items. 7.1, memorandum from planner, heritage planning, report on 2021 minor heritage permit approvals. May I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? Okay, so moved by Councillor Humphreys, seconded by Matt Kinsella. Thank you, Matt. The informational item that the memorandum regarding report on 2021 minor heritage permit approvals be received for information. Would staff like to speak to the item? So Shanti, I guess I'll be the one to tell you that you're on mute. No one else was going to jump in.
One more time and then 3 times the charm.
It's okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this item is to inform the committee about minor heritage permit approvals that have been processed by Planning and Development Services since January of 2021. Since January of 2021, Planning and Development Services consented to 7 minor heritage permits in accordance with bylaw 536511. The minor heritage permits are summarized in the staff memo. Staff was satisfied with each of the proposals, massing, design, and building materials, and that the proposals were in keeping with the general intent of the Northeast Old Aurora Heritage Conservation District Plan. Staff will be updating the Heritage Advisory Committee on an annual basis, advising of the number of minor heritage permit approvals that were granted where the approval authority is not council.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Heritage Advisory Committee? Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Prashanthi, I was surprised to see the last one in the chart on page 80 of 84, 160 DeGraff Crescent. Is that a heritage property?
Through you, it is, I believe, it's slipping my mind now, but I believe it is designated Part 4. It was, there is a plan of subdivision that came in quite some years ago, and that used to be a heritage home, but it was designated, does have a Part 4 designation bylaw, but it is commemorated through a plaque that has been constructed using the original bricks and stones of the original house. The reason why it came through a minor heritage permit is because it is Part 4 designated. However, since it was an accessory structure that was being proposed on, the accessory structure was the basis of the permit, but it wasn't being proposed on any of the heritage attributes in the heritage bylaw. So staff deemed that it would be appropriate to review that as a minor heritage permit.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Humphreys, please proceed.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's okay. My question was answered. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this informational item this evening? Okay, so if there are none, I will call a vote on this matter. All in favor? Any opposed? None. Thank you. Item 7.2, memorandum from planner, Heritage Planning Reheritage Advisory Committee update list. May I have a mover and seconder to put the item on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Humphreys, and I'll take seconded by John Green. The item that the memorandum regarding Heritage Advisory Committee update list be received for information. Would staff like to speak to this item?
I unmuted first. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this item is to provide an update. 2 items which were brought forward to the Heritage Advisory Committee meetings at the September 13th, 2021, November 1st, 2021, and the January 12th, 2022 meetings. Moving forward, this list is going to serve as a means to update the committee on items that were discussed at previous HAC meetings. This list will be updated and provided at regularly scheduled meetings. Anything that's approved by council is deemed complete and will be removed at the subsequent update list. If the committee has any further questions on any of the items in the update list, I'd be glad to provide more information.
Thank you. Committee have any questions or comments on this item or on the list? Councillor Humphreys, please proceed.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say, Prashante, thank you very much. This is a really excellent tool for us. It helps close the loop. You know, we do find out what happened to that item, and I could see it being very handy if we would have had that a little while ago with, you know, what we talked about a bit earlier. So thank you very much. I really appreciate this work, and it really will help us just keep on top of the outcomes of some of the situations that we work on. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Any other questions or comments on this matter? Okay. If there are no further comments, I'll call a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. Agenda item number 8 this evening. May I have adjournment? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Nope, we're staying.
Councillor Humphreys, will I take that as a motion?
We're staying. No kidding. Great job. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's a light agenda this evening, obviously with some important topics, but only 2 items under matters for consideration. So I don't think we've ever been finished before 8 o'clock, but I will give everyone that time back and we can enjoy it. And just like to thank everyone for voting me as a chair for the final year of this term, and also thank Mayor Marakis for joining this evening to provide that additional context on the Berksy properties.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So I will take you as the mover, and I will have someone second that, please. Matt Kinsella. Thank you, Matt. Okay, all in favor? All in favor?